So, what's going on in Brazil this week? Like almost every week, it's a roller coaster ride. And if you've lived in the United States under Trump, you'll remember what it was like. Every day, two or three pieces of news talking about the crazy things that Donald Trump was doing. Well, in Brazil, it's exactly the same. Every day, two or three horrible pieces of news about what the Bolsonaro government is doing. So, what's going on in COVID-19? Unfortunately, Brazil has reached over 600,000 people who have died, and these are the official numbers, where there are probably many more people who are unreported and have died. Even though there's been an increase in vaccinations and there are less vaccine deniers than in the United States, there's still vaccine shortages, and the country is opening up despite the number of ongoing cases. There's been a parliamentary or a congressional inquiry about COVID-19 and the government policies, and they're about to issue their final report. The rapporteur, who was the former Speaker of the House, has declared that he is likely to bring suggestions for 11 criminal indictments against the president and his two sons. And at the same time, while Bolsonaro refused in the past to receive Pfizer vaccinations at a good price, he then turned around and his supporters began negotiating a contract with an Indian company at a much higher price, where clearly people would have gotten a kickback. So this is going to be one of the main issues in this report, which will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And within this investigation, there's been a recent scandal which has really taken off this last week. It's by a company called Prevent Senior, which is a healthcare plan in São Paulo. It's a healthcare insurance plan for people who are not really happy with the state clinics and want to have their own insurance protection, but it's low priced compared to other insurance plans. And this healthcare plan has been prescribing hydrochloroquine to its patients. They've altered death certificates to hide the deaths from those people who received the hydrochloroquine and then died of COVID. And they also were prescribing hydrochloroquine and other medicines in what they called a COVID kit without getting their consent. Now, this anti-malarial drug, as you remember, was given glowing endorsement by Donald Trump during his presidency and endless press conferences. It's also been endorsed by Bolsonaro and his allies, and they're one of the few remaining global champions of the drug. So what we've learned is that, according to journalistic sources, the company's profits were slipping due to COVID-19 care, and this was a way to shore up business because these prescriptions were relatively inexpensive. So a series of doctors who work for the company have become whistleblowers, denouncing the fact that they were told that if they did not issue these prescriptions to people in this treatment, they would lose their jobs. And this is going to really reinforce the crisis related to the government and its inadequacies in addressing the COVID issues. Also this week, believe it or not, there was a proposal in Congress to be able to give menstrual pads or sanitary napkins to young girls and women who were impoverished, were imprisoned, were homeless, really did not have the abilities to get that kind of protection. Congress thought this was a wonderful measure to deal with a very serious issue among poor people, and Bolsonaro, in a very disrespectful way, has vetoed this piece of legislation. This week also, we have revelations of the Pandora Papers, and the Pandora Papers were released by a consortium of investigative journalists who released over 12 million leaked documents about the unethical and corrupt dealings of the global wealthy and the elites, including many prominent world leaders, politicians, executives, celebrities, and billionaires. And among them was the Minister of Finance, Paulo Guedes, who had since 2014 has kept up $9.5 million invested in a company named Dreadnoughts International, which is based in the British Virgin Islands. And it's one of these tax havens. These assets have been protected from a massive 40% devaluation of the Brazilian currency, the real, since Guedes took office in January in 2019. So everyone immediately after this information was released assumed that he and also the head of the central bank, Roberto Campos Neto, would likely be investigated and in fact charged with violation of insider trading or ethics questions. However, unfortunately, the one of the members of the Brazilian Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, has laid aside the case against Roberto Campos Neto, the head of the central bank, and Paulo Guedes, the minister of finance. Even though the Brazilian Association of Economists for Democracy and senators have called on the Attorney General's office to investigate the matter some more. He might be putting his money in offshore accounts, but he's certainly not addressing the high rate of inflation. This last month, Brazil saw the highest jump in monthly inflation in 27 years. Food prices are up. They've been pushed up in part by increases in gas and for transportation and electrical energy. And currently, the yearly rate is 10%. It's really a big blow to the economy and poor and working class people who've seen their standard of living decline dramatically in the last years. And finally, among the political parties, there's been a lot of vying for who is going to occupy what is called the third way. That is, those political parties who are slowly breaking from Bolsonaro, distancing themselves from his policies, even though they actively supported him during the first 2 years in office, and trying to find a candidate that might be more successful than Bolsonaro or Lula to at least get to the second round of the elections, when they hope that candidate will surpass Lula in the polls. Although all of the research that is out there so far indicates that any combination of candidates in the second round of the elections will lose to Lula. At this point, a new interesting development has occurred this last week. The Social Liberal Party and the Democrats, another party, and as I warned you in our last podcast, don't ever be deceived by the names of the political parties, because they really don't mean, they don't really stand for the ideas and ideologies of their names, with the exception of the left. I think it's a little bit more honest about who they are. The Workers' Party, the Party of Socialism and Liberty, and other political parties of the left have very clear names that represent their politics. That's not the case of many other political parties in Brazil. So two of them, the Party of the Social Liberal Party, which hosted Bolsonaro in the 2018 elections and actually won the second largest bloc in Congress at the time, and now have surpassed the Workers' Party with 54 Congress people to the PT's 53. The Social Liberal Party has decided to unite with the Democrats, another center-right party, I would say more of a conservative right-wing party, to form what they call the União Brasil, the Brazil Union. And this unified party will be the largest bloc in Congress with 82 congressional representatives. And in a recent interview, the leaders of the Democrats, Dems, have announced that they plan to run their own candidate for president. So we see now shaping up at least three major potential candidates. One from the Social Democracy Party that had held the presidency under Fernando Henrique Cardoso for 2 terms. One by Ciro Gomes, who was a left-wing nationalist who has moved to the right and is criticizing Lula almost as much as he's criticizing Bolsonaro. And now the possibility of this third political movement, this political coalition, running a candidate to try to occupy this space in the middle in what is called the third way. And another indication of this realignment has been the fact that a woman named Joyce Hasselman, who is a journalist and a TV broadcaster, a radio broadcaster, and won election to the Congress in the Social Liberal Party in the state of São Paulo, won 1 million votes, was the largest elected female congresswoman in the history of Brazil, has left the PSL and has joined the Social Democracy Party, basically abandoning Bolsonaro. And many people look at this very cynically because she has so consistently was in favor of the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff, was actively a supporter of Bolsonaro, and is only now breaking. And it's an indication of people leaving the sinking ship as Bolsonaro's fortunes seem to be declining as we follow the situation in Brazil. So we now have 3 or 4 candidates in the center-right third way. The question then remains, will Bolsonaro be impeached? And I would say likely not. Will the third way be successful? And I think likely not. But keeping in mind what I always warn people, anything can happen in Brazil. So that's all for now. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. I'll try to answer all of them. Tell your friends about the program. And if you're interested in seeing us on YouTube, please subscribe to the program. You can also follow us on Instagram at James Naylor Green. Bye-bye. Ciao.